The exhibition opened in 2013 at the Victorian Albert Museum, and at the time it didn't have a tour. But as soon as it opened, the interest grew, and eventually it crisscrossed the world: Toronto, Sao Paulo, Berlin, Chicago, Paris, Melbourne, Groningen, Bologna, Tokyo, Barcelona, and now New York, the final stop. And so, like his life, the exhibition began in London and ends in New York, his home for over 20 years. Over the past 19 weeks, so much has happened, including welcoming the 2 millionth visitor to the worldwide tour a few weeks back. It was a woman from Dublin who was visiting New York City for the first time. New York came out for the show, and so did so many people who flew from across the country and from around the world to see the last presentation of David Bowie Is. I think we all share places for David Bowie in our lives: as a trailblazer, an experimenter, a singer, a songwriter, an actor, a visual artist. His music and performances will continue to inspire. And that's why Paul Morley wrote the title David Bowie Is. David wasn't just about yesterday. Instead, David Bowie will always be about today, will always be about tomorrow. David Bowie is. Today we have a great program for you. We're welcoming Carlos Alomar. And Robin Cook.
Clark!
Who oh! Who worked on one of my favorite albums ever, Young Americans. When I was in high school, I had this album, and it was back when we still had record players, and on the front side of the album, it had Young Americans, Win, Fascination, and Right. And I learned eventually how to put the needle down just at the beginning of Win. And to me, that 3 songs, Win, Fascination, and Right, were just the perfect trio, and I would just wanted to hear them on and on again, which you can do now if you're digital, but back then you have to do the needle. Carlos also worked on 2 songs that I like a lot, also The Secret Life of Arabia and DJ. Today your moderator is going to be Christian John Wikane, a New York-based music journalist and essayist. He's a contributing editor for Pop Matters and has interviewed more than 300 recording artists, songwriters, and producers, including Paul McCartney, Janelle Monáe, Donna Summer, Pete Seeger, Annie Lennox, and Nile Rodgers. He's curated and moderated several events at the Apollo Theater, including a conversation with Dionne Warwick and Melba Moore, and Bold Soul Sisters, a panel discussion featuring Nona Hendryx, Ruth Pointer, Kathy Sledge, and Rochelle Fleming. He's also the sole author of a 50,000-word oral history that documented the 35th anniversary of Casablanca Records. Since 2010, he's penned extensive liner notes for more than 200 album reissues by Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees, Grammy winners, and other icons of rock and roll, dance, pop, and jazz. I'd like you to meet Christian.
Let's go to the Grammy Awards. March 1st, 1975. David Bowie has the distinction of presenting a Grammy to Aretha Franklin for her version of Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing by Ashford and Simpson. 6 days later, RCA releases Young Americans, an album that introduced David Bowie's own vernacular of soul, funk, and just a dash of disco. Billboard magazine says, unlike many white artists handling soul material, Bowie does not sound like an imitator. Bowie himself tells Melody Maker, "This is the closest thing I've ever done on record to being very, very me." Carlos Alomar, Robin Clark, and a cadre of powerhouse musicians and vocalists, including their longtime friend Luther Vandross, yes, were instrumental in helping Bowie manifest that vision. Young Americans went gold and made history in Bowie's career when it spawned his very first #1 single, Fame, a collaboration between Carlos, Bowie, and John Lennon. Yes! Please don't hold back. More importantly, the album cemented his personal and professional relationship with Robin and Carlos, spanning more than 3 decades of world tours and groundbreaking studio work. However, Carlos and Robin are music royalty in their own right. Married since 1970, they've individually and collectively impacted popular music in ways that reflect a spirit of fearlessness and curiosity. In 1990, Carlos released Dream Generator, the first full synthesizer guitar album recorded on a Mac Plus. He's also a distinguished artist in residence at Stevens Institute of Technology. Do we have Stevens in the house? Having worked with everyone from Beyonce to Bob Dylan, Robin is a vocalist of such power and command that Bowie himself wrote the liner notes to her solo album. Together with their daughter Leah Lorien, they became the first, yes, Leah? They became the first whole family to make Vanity Fair's Downtown 100 list. You'll learn a lot more about them this afternoon, but it is my honor and privilege to welcome Carlos Alomar and Robin Clark. We have a crowd that likes to applaud, so let's get ready.
We just love them.
Yes, yes. So I know we're at the Brooklyn Museum, but we probably wouldn't be here were it not for the Apollo Theater. Both of you met at the Apollo, auditioning for Peter Long's repertory group, Listen My Brother. I would love to know how the Apollo shaped you in your individual careers at such an early age.
Because we were part of that repertory theater group, it allowed us to, at 16 or 17 years old, understand that we had a responsibility of social consciousness. And our age group is unbelievable that 5 years before we had the Harlem riots, you know, you had the Black Panthers, you had all these things going on. We had junkies on the corner. And here are these two clean-cut kids just trying to get to the Apollo Theater. We got there, and when we got there, we were influenced by these people that we were on the shoulders of giants. Before we could even go down to the basement, we had to pass the pictures of you know, Nipsey Russell, Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington, These are the type of, and the influence of that group on us, I mean, it was like this. We're doing vocal rehearsals, and the manager would say, okay, your homework is go upstairs to the Apollo Theater and see and hear Nancy Wilson. You know, yeah, please.
So, Peter Long was our manager, used to say, Robin, Today you have to go upstairs into the Apollo and watch Nancy Wilson. Watch how she handles the microphone. Look at her neck, how her posture is. So that's what I want you to study. You know, I studied her vocally, but what he taught me was pay attention to the gestures, pay attention to the posture. Microphone technique. Never had that microphone in your mouth. Yeah, move it away. Things like that. So part of our homework was studying.
The masters.
Studying the Supremes. Studying Stevie Wonder. Studying Dionne Warwick.
But also dance. We're studying the Temptations. I mean, who gets that kind of homework?
And not on YouTube.
It's crazy. But again, we had to do things like, we were going to sing a song, but it wasn't enough for Peter Long. He said you'd have to write a little skit that introduces the song. I mean, there was, tell them about the one time when Diana, we had a song called I'm Gonna Make It. I mean, look at the songs that we're singing. I'm gonna make it. Move, move, out of my way. Step back and let us walk on.
We're gonna make it to the top.
Move, move, out of our way. This is it. Now, we had to come up with a little scenario to introduce the song. Well, Peter Long said, okay, you be the antagonist, you be the protagonist. And so the guy comes up, oh, you ain't nothing. You ain't gonna be nobody. Who are you here? The girl, Diana, just, oh no, and you know, we were taught, if you can't explain it, you can't defend it. Why are you gonna make it? Oh, I'm gonna make it because she almost hit that guy. I mean, this is the type of influence that we had. We were young, we were eager, and we were totally awake and engaged.
Well, for those of us that didn't get a chance to see Listen My Brother at the Apollo, we have a rare clip of the group performing on Sesame Street 50 years ago. They were singing a song called Children Are Beautiful, which highlights the social consciousness that was integral to their repertoire. From left to right in the clip, I'm telling you now, so you can look when we run it, you'll see Carlos on guitar, Fonzie Thornton, who's here today. Thank you, Fonzie, for the clip. Luther Vandross, and then Robin Clark is singing the verse.
Every child is equal, living America. Every child is equal, whether from near or far. Indonesia, Australia, Bolivia. Every child is equal in this land.
Propelled each of you into your own individual careers. Robin, while you became a prolific jingle vocalist in New York, you also began doing sessions for everyone from Jimmy Cliff to Alice Cooper, Kiss, and the Rascals. And Carlos began playing guitar for the Main Ingredient and became a staff musician at RCA Studios. So Carlos, I would love us to revisit that fateful phone call that you got from Tony Sylvester.
I finally got to the point, as he mentioned, to become the studio guitarist for RCA Studio. And during those years, you know, you get a producer, and you don't even know who it's for. They call you, are you available? Yes, I'm available. So you go down and then you do the tracks, and then later on, you're driving in your car and you go, oh my God, that's me! And whoever it was that was singing the vocals, then you find out, oh my God, I'm singing with blah, 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 blah. And so, you know, Tony had said, you know, there's this guy coming to America, and, you know, he needs a guitar player. I'm going to recommend, you know, you to play. And I was like, fantastic. And of course, he didn't really give me any details, but he said, Lulu. Now, To Serve With Love? Yeah. I saw To Serve With Love. That blue-eyed soul singer, I wanted to meet her. And so I said, yeah. And there I was ready to go and meet Lulu. but it was the rhythm tracks. There was no lead. The lead singers don't come in until the very, very end. So who came out was this very, very translucent, white. Man, that was like, I'm talking about British white. I mean, like, God, where's the sun? Anyway, and he had orange hair, which made him look more white. And I was like, okay, but man, he opened his mouth. And let's understand, he was a Brit. Hello, he looked so wow, look at that accent. I was very interested, and so we started talking. Oh my God, this man knew Black history. The Brits study us. They knew R&B. He knew from Cab Calloway back to, he just knew everything. He knew about all, and I was like, wow, this guy is cool. And so at that point, I'm a pretty happy guy, and I was like, wow, you look really bad. You need to get off the road and come to my house and eat, because you look really... I said, you look like, I can't say that, but it was really that simple. And we laughed, and we always had this very congenial kind of humorous. And then he came to our house, and Robin and I...
In Queens, New York.
Yeah, we were in Elmhurst.
In Elmhurst, Queens, across the street from Macy's. David rolled up in his huge limousine, and it stayed downstairs the whole time he was up and out. We ate. Of course, I made roast beef with potatoes. I said, what does an English person eat? They eat a lot of potatoes and starch and not many vegetables and lots of meat. So we made a roast. We ate. We took him into our groovy music room with pillows on the floor. And we listened to music all night. And we talked about every artist that we listened to, and Carlos and I found out that this person was one of the most interesting people at that time we had ever met. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And we were really into the scene, and from that video that you saw, I knew I was going to marry that girl. So, we were married, and we were like 17, 18, we were young. But man, we were totally engaged. And to our credit, and I want you all to know, we were fearless. And David loved, first of all, asking us about the Chitlin Circuit, asking Robin about all the background sessions and how they worked and all that stuff. And you know what? We started hanging out, not working. At that time, I was working at the Apollo Theater with the main ingredient, and of all people, Richard Pryor. And I said, listen, David, you want to come? I'm going to be at the Apollo Theater. You want to come? Oh, yeah. I would take it. Oh, my God. He loved it. He just came and said, you want to meet Richard Pryor? He said, yeah. I said, okay.
So Carlos invites David to the Apollo Theater. On 125th Street, the line for Richard Pryor went all the way to the end of the block and into the middle of the block. Not the end, but into maybe the middle of the block. We pull up in the limousine. This man with red hair gets out of the car in a black suit. I get out. Ava Cherry was with us. And we walk past the entire line. Well, I can't tell you some of the things these people said and shouted out as we walked by, because they also read me too as we walked by. But when I tell you the air stopped, everyone stopped, because it was like, who is this? No one of that kind had been seen going into the Apollo Theater with this bright orange hair, and he was fearless. I mean, part of David's whole thing was, if fear is not an option, you can be afraid, but you can't let it stop. Went into the Apollo Theater, saw the show. Carlos came out and got David. We went back to meet Richard Pryor, and I will let you take it from there.
Mr. Pryor, I'd like to introduce you. This guy came from Britain. His name is David Bowie. He's very married. Oh, okay. So how you doing? Now, there's something about comedians. Like, you see them on stage, and they're like, ha, ha, ha. And then you see them backstage, and they're not ha, ha, ha at all. They're like, oh, damn, he's dark. And he was. I mean, there are children here, so I'll just use initials. who the hell is that motherfucker in my room? And that was no joke. That was Richard Pryor. David loved it. I mean, I got cursed out by Richard Pryor. I mean, those type of bragging rights you don't take lightly. I mean, when you get to Apollo Theater in Harlem and you're hitting it with Richard Pryor, you can go back to London with a big old smile on your face. So yeah, you know, and then we hung out, you know, Latin quarters, you know, trying to just give him as much experience. And in those days, it was fabulous. Those Latin music, I mean, Wednesdays was ladies' night. So everybody went. Why? Because you had to pay, but you got ladies and they were all there. So, you know, it's just a lovely, lovely way. And again, we weren't working. We were hanging.
So this all happened in a very short amount of time. In terms of meeting David and then going down to Philadelphia to Sigma Sound Studios to record what became Young Americans. So, as some of you know, Sigma Sound was home base for Gabriel Huff's Philadelphia International Records, as well as Tom Bell's productions for the Spinners and the Stylistics, and a lot of the groups that David was listening to. In fact, on the Diamond Dogs tour, he sang Knock on Wood by Eddie Floyd. So the soul credentials were already there. They just kind of needed to be channeled. So, Carlos, when you got the call to go to Philly, what was your understanding of David's musical vision at that time?
None. And that was subsequently the way it was always. So you understand the way Robin and I work. Would you like to hear would you like to get a demo? No. Would you like to hear the song? No. Because if you hear the song, then you start thinking parts in your head. And then that one part has another part that attaches to it. And then now you're building this whole mountain of parts, and then they reject the first part. Now you're stuck with all those things floating in your head. And so as professionals, we prefer not to do that. The second objectivity is that you don't want to repeat anybody else's line. You got to come up with signature lines of your own. But I'd like to say that before we even got there, David originally, after we dined together and everything, he asked us to go on tour. But we had problems with the negotiations, so Diamond Dogs happened, we weren't there. Then he wanted us to go and do some more stuff, but we said no, we couldn't do that. Again, the negotiations fell down. So it's one thing for somebody to say, hey, David Bowie wants you to play with them, and you say, sure, I'll do it for anything. We didn't come from that. I mean, I'm glad that you started from the Apollo. It is our understanding that we must understand the value of our worth.
And the one thing that we learned in that basement at the Apollo Theater was the value of our work, because we worked hard. We rehearsed. Fonzie Thornton, who I have known all of my life at this point, was right there rehearsing with us every single day, maybe for a year before we got to set foot on the Apollo stage. We rehearsed every day. We came after school. You know, I said to someone recently, finding that set my course. Stopped me from playing hooky from school, stopped me from getting into trouble. It came into my life at the perfect time. It gave me the focus for something that I absolutely loved and never thought that I would get to do. I thought that I'd probably wind up singing in the mirror with a brush for the rest of my life. You know, it was a wonderful experience. We, as I said, rehearsed for a year, and then Peter Long came to us and he said, well, you're going to get to go up on the Apollo. You're going to be able to go do a show. We opened for Sly and the Family. That was the first time. They possibly did. I don't know if they did, but they were the first people we opened for. Then we did a show, benefit, and I got to sing behind Mahalia Jackson. Someone that my mother listened to. We were Catholics, so we didn't get much gospel music, but we loved Mahalia Jackson. And to be able to sing background for Mahalia Jackson, and I grew up listening to her. The song I auditioned with to get into Listen My Brother was a song by Mahalia Jackson. So the trajectory to go from my bathroom with a brush to the Apollo basement to singing behind Sly and the Family Stone, standing next next to Mahalia Jackson and singing at City Center, I knew my direction. I knew where I was going. And that's where we got our roots. Those are the those are the jobs and the experiences that provided us the roots that we have to this day.
So as you can see, going into the studio with David, we really did not have that many expectations because we didn't know what he wanted. You know what he wanted? Soulfulness. And what does that mean? I mean, really, give me the song and we'll do a soulful adaptation. But we don't know. And look, musicians know that although we play well, we play well by ourselves. When you put the right musicians together, oh my God, you reach heights. There's no way you can do that by yourself. And one of the things that David did when we were in the studio is to allow us, we did it like we usually do. We did the rhythm section, Willie Weeks, Andy Newmark, myself, Mike Garson. We just, Pablo Rosario, we just go out there, he has a little idea, this, how about this, boom, boom, boom. We play a few little things, everybody writes their little separate chord charts, and we go, we kind of like doodle around with it, and then we all come back to the studio. And as professional musicians, he didn't have to tell us anything. Andy Newmark listened to the bass. Hey, I like that little part. Let me hit you with that. Okay, I'll catch that. I listen to, Mark Garson, I play this little Latin kind of thing. Yeah, I got that. Next time we go back in, we recut it. Then we come back in, we listen to it again. David says, yeah, I like that. It's like a Chinese menu. One from column A, two from column B, three from column C. And we kind of put this together. But let me explain. Fast. We're session musicians. We come into the studio not to play around. You press that red button. We're in the Musicians Union. We get paid for every 3-hour sessions. So here's what we could do. Whip it out in 3 hours and get to the other session, or drag it out till 6 hours.
But I think that's also something we learned in the Apollo again. We had a taskmaster. We had someone who would say, what are you doing? What are you doing? Robin, why are you laughing? Well, because Luther would be standing next to me, pinching me, or tickling me, and with a straight face, and I'd be the one laughing. But we learned discipline at 16, 17, 18 years old.
Robin, so how did a casual visit to Sigma Sound with Luther turn into you and Luther singing background on America?
I called Carlos. He was already down in Philly, and I said, can I come down? And he said, sure, come and hang. And I said, well, can I bring Luther? Because at that point, Luther and I did everything together. We were the brothers Karamazov. We went everywhere together, we did everything together, we ate together, we slept together, not in that way, not in the biblical sense, but we slept together. So Carlos said, sure, bring him. It's our best friend, why not? Bring him. And Luther would come with me to sessions in the hopes, I'd say, come with me, in the hopes of maybe they'll hire you, And he would do the same thing for me. And those are the days you could just hang out with each other, and the next thing you know, you're singing on a record. And that's what happened. He came with me, he went with me, and we're sitting in front of David in the sofas, and the Young Americans comes on, and Luther says, Robin, what do you think of this? Sing this. Young Americans, we want the young American. All right.
David went, excuse me, darling. Could you say that again? No. But they were down there on the couch. The council was there. No. In the studio. Oh, no. We're really sorry. No. In the studio.
Luther and I were like, really? He said, yes, would you don't mind putting that down? We went in there and put it down. We laid it down. Then he said, next song, first he said to Luther, do you have any more parts? And Luther said, I can come up with parts because Luther was the part king. He could come up with a part in his sleep. Came up with the parts for the song. We went in, we put down Young Americans. Next thing David says is, would you like to do the rest of the album? We only had the clothes on our back. We stayed for a week.
They only came for one.
We had to have clothes brought from New York down the street. So that's how we wound up singing on the record.
And it's yeah. And it's a credit to David's power of observation and understanding that those little pieces of the puzzle are really like magnets. They just fit, and the minute they fit, you don't fight that type of situation. You let it flow, and you know what? Throw a little bait out there. Let's try another song. Now, once they nail that second song, those singers aren't going anywhere. And Luther came up with part, and also we had Ava Cherry and War and Peace, who were not really singers like that. They were part of his support group. But the inclusivity of those people in the group was paramount to David being able to really feel comfortable, the ability for us to work with other people that we don't even know on different levels of talent. And it all gelled up into being this lovely, lovely album.
Absolutely.
That just.
And then when we realized that we needed more singers, Luther had a group at the time called Luther. And he brought down Diane Summer, who he and I went to high school with. We were 16 years old. We used to drag her out of school to play hooky. And she's like, no, I don't want to go. He's like, come on, you got to come with us and sing. And another guy named Anthony Hinton, who was in Luther's group.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm so excited because we have that clip of all of you performing Young Americans on the Dick Cavett Show. Where the vocal playing just took it to a whole other level. Luther Vandross's estate? Yes, Luther Vandross's niece.
Stand up, Selena. We can't see ya.
So on the Dick Cavett show, you also performed Foot Stompin', which had been a top 20 R&B hit for the Flares in 1961. But Carlos, how did that turn into fame?
The song was good, but sometimes the songs, you take them into the studio and they lackluster. They just don't, you played it just the way you played it, like you've been playing it. And then you hear it back and it's like, it's all right, And so, you know what, like many times you can't. It's just like, it's all right, but it's not as good as these other songs. And so it didn't sound right, within the mix. And as you can well understand, Foot Stompin' is great, but it would never have been in Young Americans. But he loved that part. That was funky. Funky will not be denied. And so we got to the studio, and we recorded it, and he's like, okay, and so we left it. Little did I know he had gone back after everything was over, and he had gotten in contact with Harry Maslin to go to Electric Lady, and there they had cut it up into these little sections. It's what we call blues changes, what we all call Louie Louie. Dun, 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 dun. Those are the four sequences. And that's what basically Fame is. It's a blues progression. So Fame is really a blues song. Oh no, wow, nothing. You don't know. You don't even know. First of all, I'm going to tell you now, we'll probably get into it. Bowie fooled y'all from the very beginning. And when it came to doing arrangements and stuff, we sat down and concocted some ideas that were just like, no, oh yeah, no, yeah, no. And y'all ate it. It was amazing. It was a blues song. So we did it, and basically they had the drums and the bass. Boom, 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 boom. That was it. And so, I got called down and I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And then he said, well, I want to do something with this. And I was like, okay. But I'm thinking about it like James Brown, because I worked with James Brown, and my rude awakening was, when I got to James Brown, there were 3 guitar players. I thought I was going to be all by myself. Oh no, young blood. No. You're like on the bottom and they're like... And so I heard it, and there's something about trying to impress someone where you just overplay. The guitar part that I was coming up with has so many parts. It was just like, why are you playing it on one track? Be the 3 guitar players, like James Brown. And so I decided I'm going to treat this song as if it was a James Brown song. And so I said, one guitar is just going to go, and the other one's going to go. So you have a little what we call ear candy, something on the left, something on the right. What we call in orchestration, call a response. So it all went back and forth. So Lennon was in town, and David really wanted to meet Lennon. Consequently, that's why he made the Across the Universe as a tribute to John, and come down to the studio, listen to what we did on your song. But as long as you're in the studio, here's a little something you can do for us. And so John Lennon got there, and he laid down and gave me acoustic guitar, and so he put down acoustic guitar. Funny thing is that when he plays his acoustic guitar, he puts his head on the guitar, kind of lazy, and just and he sounded like he was saying later on we found out that Bowie had heard that, and wow, Fame. Anyway, so that basically happened, and they wanted to go have dinner. They asked me to go to dinner, and I said no. I had heard these parts in my head, and you know the way inspiration is. If you don't jump on it, a good lamb chop will make you forget anything. And I just thought, don't do it, Carlos. They might be drinking, they might have that mint sauce, you don't know. And so I stayed there, and in so doing, I prepared this this thing that I wanted to just show him, man. I mean, you know, I did that. We talked about that when we went to the house. I'm gonna lay it on you like heavy. And when he came back and he heard those tracks, he was like, Dad, oh, this is fine. Let me just put this one little thing. Now let me talk to you about David and his one little thing. There's something that is like you throw a, what is it called, the wrench in the gears? Yeah, the monkey wrench. You throw it, boom. We would have these fabulous tracks, and then David would go, that's really, really good, but if we could just put in there, really, and I'm like, oh. And so that's what he did. He put da-da-da-da, and that's the way that we basically ended with Fame as it was.
Well, after Young Americans was released, Carlos, you went to Broadway with the Rocky Horror Show, playing in the orchestra. That September, Fame not only went to #1, but it charted on the disco chart, the soul chart, the Hot 100, and the rock singles chart simultaneously.
Not bad for the first time.
George Clinton said that Fame inspired Give Up the Funk, and then later that year, James Brown took your guitarist from Fame and recorded Hot. David then performed Fame on Soul Train, making him the 4th white male solo artist in the show's history to perform on the show. He also performed Golden Years on Soul Train, which was the first single from Station to Station. So I would love to know, since Station to Station is the first album to feature you, George Murray, and Dennis Davis as the D.A.M trio, how did that come together?
Well, first of all, Dennis, Robin, and I knew each other before David. I worked with jazz great Roy Ayers. And, you know, we hung out. Like anything else, Robin and I were just like hangout people. That's what we did. In fact, that's how we, look, it wasn't just me and her. Our circle, Nile Rodgers, Fonzie, Dennis, Luther Vandross. We were all these like young, up and coming, you know, Bernard, and all of us were like together. Nat Adderley Jr. We were all together. And so given the opportunity, it was like, boom, you know, it happened. You know, as far as the D.A.M trio is concerned, we really got together during Station to Station. We were introduced to George Murray, who Dennis Davis knew at the time. They had worked together, so it was like that 6 degrees of separation thing. And when we got together, it was just, oh my God. You know, people are asked to do something, and they don't know what it is that they're going to do. And then someone comes along and suggests something, and you go, wow, that sounds fine. But you don't realize it's integral to who you are. So the minute you unleash yourself, immediately it goes boom, boom, boom. All 3 of us were like in the top of our game. Dennis Davis was amazing. He comes from jazz background, you know, Max Roach. He studied under, you know, as a jazz aficionado. He did a roll with one hand. I was like, damn! He did that. And George Murray, I would consider George Murray the lead guitar bass player. Because when he laid down the line, you remember it. Anything he did, it was like, anything, station to station, boom, boom, anything. It was just like, his bass line was just solid, stone cold solid. And so David immediately realized, oh my God, these 3 are just, and oh, let me say something. There were no metronomes. You listen to those records. When you start looking at a song like Station to Station at like, what, 63 beats? Boom, 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 boom. Is there a funeral going on? That's not a dredge. It's like walking through mud. Do you know how hard it is to hold down a tempo like that? It's serious. And these guys were able to do everything, whether it's TVC 15, and all the way up. That trio, was able to be what David always wanted. Now, David and I and Robin had talked about Kraftwerk and Noob and all these bands that were here. David did not want an electronic type of thing so that everybody would go, oh, it sounds like Kraftwerk. But he knew that a funk rhythm section, now, what Brit had a three-piece black rhythm section? How do you come from the Spiders from Mars to the D.A.M trio? That is something that is like as obvious as the nose on your face, and yet the D.A.M trio, nobody even knew our name.
I will tell you though, that there's a review that Village Voice critic Robert Christgau wrote about David's 1976 tour, where he wrote, and this is a direct quote, Carlos Alomar, George Murray, and Dennis Davis are essential to this music. Rolling Stone also described, Rolling Stone also described Bowie's performances at this time as hitting a career peak in terms of his vocal daring, his musicians, and his sheer soul power. And luckily, we have a clip where David himself is introducing you.
Percussion, Dennis Davis. Bass guitar, George Murray. And